1972, well, it was turmoil. Everybody seemed to be in dispute with the government. The miners won, the dockers won, the building workers won. But the government took action against the building workers.
Because of the dreadful conditions in the building industry, particularly the lump. And for those who are not aware of what the lump is, it's casual labour basically. People are paid a lump sum for carrying out so much work on the site. But what that did, it actually diverted away from trade unionism on any site, because if they worked on the lump, they weren't a member of the union, and so therefore the employer could divide and rule. And that's why they decided to take strike action. And their demand was for £30 per 35-hour week, but also the eradication of the lump and an increased in health and safety measures on sites. They were 8 weeks into the strike. The employers offered them a derisory deal. Then the unions decided to have an all-out strike. What really goes amiss here, the building workers actually won, for the first time, a decent increase in pay. They didn't get all they wanted in terms of health and safety, and they never won in regard to the eradication of the lump. So what they decided to do was table those items they didn't achieve during the strike for the 1973 pay claim. But of course, events overtook it.
There was a discussion on taking place to everybody, telling them about the strike and why we were out, and asking them would they support us, because it was there to try to persuade people to withdraw their labour and join the strike. We were never told that what actions were taking place, or they need to curtail this or curtail that. Nothing of the sort was ever mentioned.
The police were with us all day, and indeed at the end of the day the Chief Superintendent Meredith thanked us all for the way we'd behaved and wished us a safe journey home. It was 5 months later, Valentine's Day to be exact, February the 14th, 1973, came the knocks on the door. We were charged with that under that Conspiracy Act, and then unlawful assembly and affray. They used those two charges as well.
That was a bad day. You can see I'm getting emotional, but I want to carry on.
Okay, thank you.
Are you John Mackenzie Jones? I said yes. And they said we have a warrant for your arrest. I said, well, I have to go home. Well, we would prefer if you came out with us now. I said, I have to go home. My wife would be waiting for me. And I have a young daughter, 11 months old. They decided to take me to my house. And when I opened the door to walk in, they were right behind me. My wife said, what's going on? My little girl come over to you, hug me. And they told my wife what was going on. She broke down. And I asked them, could I change? And they said, no. I said, my wife's done my tea. They said, no, you're coming with us.
When they were arrested, they had no idea of exactly what was going on. There was no picket line. There was no confrontation with the building workers on the sites, and there was no confrontation with the police. So you have to say to yourself, then where did the information about the charges come from? Where did it come from? The 24 pickets were designated to stand in 3 trials in the Crown Court in Shrewsbury. 6 in the first trial, 9 in the second, 9 in the third.
My own barrister, Roy Ward, said to me, if I didn't plead guilty, then I would be going down for 3. Whereas if I pleaded guilty, I would get a suspended sentence. I refused the offer.
I think at that time we were handcuffed and then taken into the van to take us down to the magistrate court, We seen lots of people in there, people we knew, and the charges were read out to us. I came out of prison and went home, and maybe after 3 or 4 days, one gentleman in particular, he was the deputy convener in the steelworks, was told by the director of my company that it would be desirable if John Jones were not allowed back into the steelworks. So Monday morning came along, I got ready for work. No sooner did we got there, the conveners came across, said to me, because what we just told them now is that if you're not allowed in within the next half hour, we will instruct all the works to stop works and we're going to tell them to come out. And they took me in. Massive solidarity. I mean, it was a big works, it was 13,000 men. To think they had the power to do that for me.
At the end of the day, 6 pickets were imprisoned. Des Warren received the longest prison sentence of 3 years. 3 in the first trial were imprisoned, 3 in the second trial were imprisoned, and there was no prison sentences in the third trial. But nevertheless, 6 pickets were imprisoned and 16 received suspended sentences, and there was just 2 pickets who were found not guilty.
The government, they said it was that the trials at Shrewsbury were just ordinary, everyday criminal trials. Well, if you can find me an ordinary, everyday criminal trial with over 2,000 police on duty lining the streets, then I'll accept that that's an everyday criminal trial, but it was far from everyday criminal. It was a trial orchestrated, be clear, by the government. It was orchestrated by them to frighten trade unionists into what their actions could incur.
It's been said in this court that this trial had nothing to do with politics. Among the 10 million trade unionists in this country, I doubt you will find one who would agree with that statement. It's a fact of life, entirely due to acts of Parliament. Every strike that takes place is regarded as a political act.
Des Warren's speech was most poignant, it was well composed and what have you. But what I take from Des's speech was this. The employers just didn't go into a dispute to beat a dispute. They went into that dispute to dismantle a union. That was their whole aim. Trade unionists had to accept in the end that there was nothing that could be done. The pickets served the sentence, and that was it. Until 2004. And Des Warren died prematurely. And on his death, a number of trade unionists in the Northwest got together to say, right, this is unfinished business. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can attempt to overturn what we know to be a miscarriage of justice. When I joined the campaign, what was decided was that we were going to apply to the Criminal Cases Review Commission to have the cases referred to the Court of Appeal, because it's only the Court of Appeal who can quash the convictions. So that's the route to take. However, to do that, we needed a firm of solicitors, we needed fresh evidence, because the Criminal Cases Review Commission will only consider a case where you have evidence that was not before the court at the time, and the defence either didn't know about it at the time or had no way of obtaining it. And we got a marvellous letter back from Jack Straw saying, no, we can't have the documents because to release those documents would be a threat to national security. I was shocked. And so it was at that point we knew that if we weren't going to get it through what we regarded to be the official channels, then we'd have to do it ourselves. And that's when I came into my own, so to speak, regarding to volunteer to do the research.
We met with leaders of unions. They all agreed that they would if it came to it, that they would back us. We would travel around the country speaking about our campaign and the campaign for justice. People there were very responsive to us, and we raised the money for the financial side to pay all our legal costs.
The day I found what turned out to be the crucial evidence that did eventually go before the Court of Appeal, I was going through a file. It was about 2 inches, 3 inches thick. When I used to get tied at queue, I used to have a ruler to make sure I read everything. So I'd take the ruler down the page and I read everything. And I got to paragraph 16, and paragraph 16 explained that in the first instance, the police had destroyed the witness statements that had been taken because at that time, and spelt it out, at that time, they didn't have the use of photographs or knew what they had to prove. So not only did they tell us that they'd actually destroyed those witness statements, but they said the reason why. I realised what I'd found. I realised what I'd found because we had the examples, if you like, of the Hillsborough people and the miners and their trials after, when there was concocted evidence put before the court. So I knew, and I jumped up off that chair. And I think everyone knows how quiet libraries, particularly these type of libraries, are. And I didn't care. I just was so delighted. And I went straight to the computer downstairs and I sent it to the lawyers. And I said, this is what I've been looking for. Please look at it carefully.
Mac Jones, myself, were the only 2 pickets that attended the courts in London for the appeal hearing. And then it was March the 23rd, 2021, when Eileen rang me and she just said, we won. And I still get emotional about that. I can't help it. It's only 2 words. We won, but those words mean so much to me because I'd been fighting for 47 years. And I mean fighting, trying to convince people of what had gone on. People were saying, you're one of those Shrewsbury pickets. That's who you were. As though it was some kind of a tarnish on me. But no, I'm proud of being a Shrewsbury picket. I'm proud that we won. I'm proud that we beat the system. That means such a lot to me.
I just want people to know that by the convictions being quashed, doesn't quash my sentence. I still served my 9 months, or 6 months as it was. I still went through hell with my family. I was blacklisted after I finished the steelworks, and I made the decision to go somewhere else and learn a new career.
What I would say to any youngsters coming into the trade union movement, you've got to believe in what you're doing. You've got to believe in your trade union. And you've got to take action yourself. And you've got to be part of it. Because if you're not part of it, you won't enjoy it. It's not all enjoyment, but there's a fight to be done. And we've got to carry that fight because in Britain, modern day Britain, the working person does not get justice from anywhere and does not get their fair reward from anywhere. You have to fight for your fair reward. If you don't fight it, you'll lose. If you do fight, you'll win.
If you look at the disputes today, the government is not really after the dispute, but in my view, and learning what I have done over the years, particularly with this case, they are after dismantling all trade unions. They've tried to do this in the past. And I think personally, they're going to try to do it in the future. They're going to try to do it now. They're weakening trade unions, that they're hoping to weaken them. Now, the wonderful thing about today, And I will say this because it is wonderful. I have never experienced so many unions and trade unionists acting together, because if we act alone, they'll pick us off one by one. We need to act together now.